It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
So, Keith McConnell, welcome back to the podcast here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
We did a preview a couple weeks ago now of blacktail deer, we recapped the blacktail deer, and then we previewed the sheep hunt. And then I saw what your sheep hunt program was. That was crazy. I haven't heard of anybody doing or going through all the trouble that you did just to get to where you were going to hunt.
Yeah, so I took a boat from Hoonah to Juneau to Haines, drove me and my jet boat from Haines north, then jet boated, then hiked, then started glassing around, then decided which way we wanted to go. Yeah, it was a long process to get just to the spot where we wanted to start hunting. And it was a chore. So it was logistically complicated.
Yeah, crazy. But was that because where you scouted, you thought, okay, this is where we need to be. We need to get away from some people. People might be flying into this spot, and so let's get to here. And how do we get to here and go through all that trouble, or how did you decide on this whole approach?
Yeah, kind of. You probably do the same thing. I'm sure lots of other people all winter. There's time to watch YouTube videos, and there's time to e-scout, and there's time to read management reports. And, I found a video that was promising, and there was good sheep habitat, and it looked like it wasn't a terrible, super dangerous, sketchy area. And the guys on the video got sheep, and I, paused it at some key points and basically pinpointed exactly where they'd gone. And I don't know if you do this too, but on Google Earth, whenever I find a spot like that, I drop a pin on that exact spot, and then on the pin I label it, and then in the notes I provide the link to the YouTube video. So
wow,
you can click on the pin and then click on the YouTube video, and then I also, in that notes, I write down the exact timestamp that picture is shown. So you just go back to it, and you know exactly where it's at, and this video is attached to that spot. And I, a year later, went back to it and looked at it, and the video was gone. So they deleted that video.
Interesting.
And it actually, it probably wasn't even a year. It's probably like a couple months later. So someone had told them, or somebody else had told them, they'd revealed too much, and they tried to delete it and get rid of it. But I'd already dropped the pin, so I already knew about that spot.
Well, was there any sort of starting spot? Because there's multiple ranges that you could hunt for sheep, and I guess the approach can kind of give things away. If you're doing a fly out, that says a little bit, but how much did you have to go on, or did you just spend I know Hoonah might be somewhat boring during the winter, but that's next level. If you're just looking through every mountain range, looking for similar things in the background of a film you saw on YouTube.
Yeah, I've probably found 20 sheep, exact spots of sheep spots where guys have shot sheep from just YouTube videos. Damn. And it's looking at everything from glaciers. It's looking at lakes. That's looking at, you can use which direction the sun's coming up and which direction the mountains are.
Yeah.
The real trick, though, sometimes I found, and actually this is I'll tell you later exactly what it was, but there's a deer hunting video where a guy has spliced in several different locations into the same video, and confused the heck out of me because I started searching in the wrong area based on aerial footage. And then turns out I figured out eventually, but it was like a work trip and a fun trip and then a hunting trip, but combined all the footage into one. So, sometimes you can get thrown off, but if you're patient enough and determined, and that guy made a couple mistakes and I got him on it. But,
how long do you think it would take you to dissect one of my goat spots? Probably not too long at all, right? Or have you already done that?
No, I don't. I mean, there's goats everywhere.
So, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a lot different.
And some videos are impossible and it's hard and there's no distinctive features or things are too close up. But, people that actually want to keep things really secret, you have to be either very careful about it or just don't post it. And I know guys that have been very successful and they'll post a picture of the after and of the, close up kill shot, and they're not posting landscape photos or scenery photos because it can give away stuff. So, but to get back to your question there, how did you choose the spot? I basically looked at guiding areas and looked at where you could land a super cub and where you could hike from, and just tried to find spots that were far away from all those spots. And it's actually pretty hard to do in sheep country.
Yeah.
In Alaska.
The amount of fly out spots is crazy. You kind of look around and you think, okay, this is going to be a good spot. But then, one drainage over, oh, there's a landing strip. What in the heck?
Yeah. And there's now imagery, not just Google Earth, but there's, super high res imagery from different companies that you can get your hands on that have different, satellite photos than Google Earth, where something might be under cloud on Google Earth, but it's clear on this one.
Right.
And you can zoom way in and, you can see it, 150-foot cub strip that someone's landed on 5 times. And you mark that spot and all right, well, some people can go there. Probably not very many people are going there, but somebody can go there. And then, if someone can go there, someone's going to scout that spot by airplane.
Yeah.
Especially a guide. So if you're not going the first week when a ram has just come, just turned 8 years old or just come full curl, if you're not the first one there, someone probably knows that there's a ram that's, decent ram there. So I just basically tried to find spots that weren't around landing strips. And I didn't want to do a fly out.
Yeah.
And we ended up basically having a plan A, B, and C. And after doing all the digital scouting and reading and planning, I talked to several people that had been in that general area and kind of bounced some ideas off them. They said, yeah, do this, do that, watch out for this. And it made me feel a lot better about my plan that I developed ahead of time. After we had hiked way in and it was decision time of, all right, do we go east or west and start climbing the mountains? We stopped and we were eating a snack and just glassing, and we didn't see any sheep on plan A, B, or C. And we saw a sheep in an area that we hadn't even thought about hiking into. Didn't download the maps for it, was like completely off our radar. And I was like, well, it's a ram, and it's got, when it turned its head sideways, it had a lot of dark over its face. So I was like, that's a decent sized horn. I was like, well, we got some time, we got good weather, let's just go over there and try that. So we just flipped through all the plans and planning and all the routes up that I'd figured we could get into, threw that all out the window and just totally changed courses. And in the end, it turned out okay. I mean, spoiler alert, we didn't get a sheep, but we saw a lot of good habitat and we found some pretty cool areas. And I think all things considered, we did all the things that we needed to do to be successful. However, just the Rams weren't quite legal, just barely sublegal. And I was like, heartbreak after heartbreak. Like, you could tell from, whenever we spotted a ram, I could tell it wasn't a huge ram. But I was like, ooh, but they're all super close. We should get closer. So we pushed it in every scenario, trying to get as close as we could. And we got in rifle range of it's like plenty. For a sheep hunt, compared to my other sheep hunts, I would say we got into range of plenty of rams. And had they been legal, Nathan, my hunting partner, and I both would have been able to take a ram. We were the terrain was good, and the approaches that we made, and playing the wind and playing the thermals, that all worked out great. But just they were just a little shy.
Yeah. You talk about heartbreak, but I can't imagine the heartbreak of these people who come up on a ram that's sublegal. And I think the official number is about 10% of the sheep that come into Fish and Game are sublegal. But how many people have come up on it and measure it and don't bother to take it in because they know it's sublegal. So it's just a whole different thing, man. Like I'm fascinated, but I've talked to a lot of people about sheep hunting, and talked on podcasts about it. But man, it's just I've never actually gone on a sheep hunt. It's just such a wild thing that I just don't have to worry about with the stuff that I do. But I definitely want to go, but it scares me on the one hand to go through all the trouble to get up there, and then not see something. That would be unfortunate. All that time, all that money, all that effort. But yeah, the shooting something sublegal or trying to make something legal. And I know one of yours was stinking close, but like you stayed true to it and you said, nope, not gonna happen. It's not that you're passing on it. It's sublegal. It's not your choice to pass. You can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 10%, whatever the percentage is, those are the people that are kind of hoping it's a borderline. And, like you said, how many people are just choosing not to self-report. And, after what we went through to get there, hike up in there, bust brush, get up into the alpine and do all that stuff, it's a lot of work. And I can easily see how some people would have the mentality of shoot first, ask questions later, or maybe just try to, sneak it out. And we took a lot of video on my phone through this phone scope, and we had time because we didn't spook anything. We were just recording, watching, waiting, and I'd record for a few minutes and then go back through and just go by frame by frame by frame as the ram turned its head in a different way or whatever. And in the moment, you're like, ooh, it's pretty close. Ooh, it's pretty close. And then when you finally get the still image of it, when you're, maybe 300 yards away, and then you've zoomed in 20 times or 25 times, and then get a still picture when it finally does turn, then you can say, okay, well, it's a half inch short. Or one was probably, a half inch to a quarter inch too short. And I was like super close.
So how long when you first saw them you said you closed to about 300 yards. How long did it take you to move over there? Were you quick? Did you just kind of glass and then figure you move over there? And then how stealthy were you making that move? Because some people talk about, if the sheep sees you, they're gone. Whereas other people say, if you just make cautious stalks, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. So I think on the last one we said staying as hidden as possible. And as it turned out, we ended up getting probably 200 yards away from 3 rams that were on a flat grassy spot. They were bedded. We popped over the top, looked at them, got really good looks, determined they weren't legal, and then just started walking around and moving and looking for the other ram that was a little further up. And those three, they got up and they were nervous and they moved off a little bit, but they didn't run away. They just looked at us. They moved out to like maybe 400 or 500 yards and then just kind of chilled. So I don't know. Maybe we were overcautious and over sneaky, but I don't know. You can never, in hindsight, it always works out, but you can never, try to be as stealthy as you can. So from the first time we first saw some of the rams to the time we got on them, we took a couple of hours. Sometimes it was, we saw the first ram that we decided to go into that drainage. We saw that in the afternoon. And then it wasn't until the next midday where we saw it again. And so, basically 24 hours between the time we saw it and then the last time we saw it to the time we refound it again. And we popped up a bit too close, actually. That one winded us, but it hadn't seen us or heard us. And so it was nervous and it moved off, but it actually moved away from where my scent was and then closer to me. So it had no idea we were there.
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes it seems like it totally depends on the situation, where there's a difference between like spooking something and bumping something. And sometimes if you are pretty cautious, you might bump something. And so it's uncomfortable, but it's still curious enough it's not going to get out of the territory. And I've done that with deer during rut and not during rut either, when they're just kind of like, oh, what's going on here? And they'll just bump. So if you stay with it, you're going to be fine. If you freak out, you start doing something crazy, then, it's going to be over. But it's interesting to see how tolerant some animals are, as long as you're kind of in that mode of, all right, take care of business. All right, I bumped it, but let's stay focused, and we can still do something potentially.
Yeah. And the one that we bumped there with the scent, it ended up going up and over and out of our drain, like out of our area, over the mountain, gone. But then 2 days later, it was back, and it was back to its same little area.
Interesting.
And so, it must like that spot. It must be a good ram spot. And you can see there's areas that are perennial ram beds, just, years and years of ram activity, trails, poop, it's a spot where a ram will hang out, all summer probably.
So what was your mileage on this one? So you end up not getting one, and there's like kind of 3 phases to this entire hunt. So this phase 1 area where you didn't get a ram, what was the total mileage on that?
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
I haven't even measured it on. I didn't even go back to Google Earth to remeasure where we went, but I would say total mileage on that first few days was probably less than 15 miles, which compared to my last sheep hunt was like one day. I mean, we did 15 miles in a day. But we ended up only spending 4 days in that area. We basically hiked everywhere we could get to hike, found some routes into other drainages, and then decided to back out. We hadn't we'd seen rams, but they weren't legal. We'd seen rams that had left, seen rams that came back in, but they just weren't, there was nothing that was big enough by our standards to shoot. Mm-hmm. So we backed out, got back down. We were going to move positions, and the river had come up like 3 feet. And what we had needed to cross, which would have been easy gravel bars and a couple little hop skips across to get over to our other side that we needed to get to, was like whitewater rapids.
Yikes.
And not just a little bit of it, but like a lot of rapids. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. That's like, first of all, we can glass over to that other side. We can't see any sheep, not even lambs or ewes. Second of all, it's just terrible. Like, it's very dangerous to cross that.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it. So we had lunch, discussed what we should do. And, had we seen some rams on the other side or something, maybe wait and see if the water dropped. It hadn't really rained on us very much. It kind of sprinkled and maybe rained a little bit, but not what we would call rain in Southeast Alaska. But
yeah.
As it turns out, further up the drainage and in the back of the mountains, it had rained like about 5 inches in the last 24 hours. So everything in all of Central Alaska basically flooded out, and that went it both sides of the mountains, everywhere had rain. And then I went back and looked at the satellite like reflectivity, and you can just see like a huge, massive storm just came through the Gulf while we were out there, and basically dumped a ton of rain on like all of South Central Alaska. Mm-hmm. So we had gone into like whatever plan D, and then plans A, B, and C were literally a wash. We couldn't go do them. So while we're sitting there, I was like, well, if we back out now and can the whole sheep aspect of it, we could probably go do caribou, or we could try. Moose season opens pretty quick. We could try to go into an area for moose. And so Nathan was like, all right, yeah, let's change gears. Let's not push it. We're out of our element up here. We don't know. And at the time, we didn't know why the river had flooded so much. We're like, what's going on? Is this normal? Is it going to go right back down? Is it going to stay like this for a week?
Yeah.
And there was no camping spots like anywhere. I think on the last one we had talked about having 2 separate small tents and being able to put them up. But we found one spot that was in the creek bed, like several feet from water. That was the only spot that was remotely flat enough for 2 people to stay next to each other. And even setting up one tent anywhere was it was like really hard. So that that didn't work out either. And then down by where we needed to cross the river, the area was a big burn at some point, and everything was so thick there was no open spots. There would have been open spots on the gravel bars, but the gravel bars were under 2 feet of water. Right. or who knows how much water they were under. So we basically just packed our stuff up and just chugged out of there and just hiked and got out of there, and shifted gears after that. So
then, go ahead. What's the next part there?
No, go. You go for it.
Yeah. So you shifted gears, and at some point, like when I was getting messages of the trip after it had happened, there was this spike. Was it a spike fork, or was it a fork, or what was the moose you ended up getting?
So we ended up going into an area with my uncle, which I've gone into a couple times before with him, and he's got his friend group. They all go to the same area every year. They have their little moose camp. And we ended up on like September 4th or 5th, basically our last day that we could be hunting before we had to bail out and get back to Southeast. We spotted a little spike, a little spike. Like the spikes were like 4 inches long. And it's like, well, that's a legal bull. Should we go for it? Oh yeah. So we got off the hillside, went down, and tried to make a stock on it. And I in 2022, Nathan and I both drew archery cow tags for the Fairbanks area, and I had ended up shooting a moose. We didn't have enough time to get 2 moose, so since I got one last year, he was on deck to shoot this year. But since it was my uncle's kind of hunting area, like he was gonna shoot it, and I didn't even bring my rifle into the area at all or have a tag, so I was just along to spot and help. So Nathan and my uncle were making a stock, and they got right to where the moose was, and the moose had disappeared, and I was following along, trying to stay out of the way, stay quiet. Little bull gave us a slip, so we backed out of there. Instead of just tromping all around trying to bump it or push it or something, we just backed out, went back up on the hill, looked again. Sure enough, it walked right back out into an area where we could see it. Okay, so then we went all the way back down the hill, and then we could see it. But as soon as they got off into the brush and into the trail, neither one of them could see it. So I was standing back up high and just kind of giving them, directions: go left, go right, and keeping them straight. And it was quite a ways to hike out to where it was. And they were getting closer and closer and closer, but they couldn't see it. And so I was worried that they were going to be so close and not see it, that they were going to spook it and bump it, and it would just, run away. And this, the last couple 100 yards, it can hear them. It's looking at them, looking at where their sound's coming from, but it can't see them either. And they finally notice it and spot it. And my uncle, it's basically obscured. All you can see is its head. And so they're double checking, making sure, all right, it's not a cow. It's make sure it's that little bull, because it has little tiny spikes. And my uncle aimed for the only thing he could see, which was the head. And I have it on video through the spotting scope, through this phone scope, and the bullet goes like maybe an inch over its forehead, right between the ears, and it ducks and moves, and then he loses sight of it. And Nathan now can see it, and so then Nathan just dropped it.
Oh wow!
But it all happened like super quick, and but then my uncle didn't see it after. As soon as it moved, he didn't see it. So it was it all happened really quick after that long stock. But then we were able to get pretty close to it with the 4-wheeler, and then so the pack out was really not much of a pack out. It was pretty easy. So
yeah, how much meat did you get off that thing?
We took the whole thing to Delta Meat and Sausage on our way south, and it was, I want to say, $370 nice. With bones in. So, and I'm not sure how much meat will end up being off of that, but they'll do most of it.
Yeah, that's nice though. That's super nice.
Yeah.
So this was my order might be a little bit messed up. So how long after the sheep hunt was this? Because this is the same like trip north, but you kind of had some separate hunts in there. So how long after you kind of abandoned the sheep hunt was this moose program?
Basically immediately after. We basically got out of the sheep area, went back to Fairbanks, reshuffled gear that night, and then the next morning went into moose country.
Gotcha.
And then spent what would have been our second half of our sheep hunt in a moose area.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's the thing, man, about being on the road system, and like Hoonah's not on the road system, but you can get to Juneau and then get up to Haines. Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to go to Juneau first in order to get to Haines, right?
Yeah. And there's almost daily ferry from Juneau to Haines in the spring, summer, and fall at least.
Then you have to go through Canada, and it's a kind of a long drive. But man, being able to, like, you can be in Anchorage and then drive, over to Toke. You can drive north to Healy. You can drive further north to Fairbanks. You can drive, all the way to Prudhoe Bay. Just being on that road system, it's a long stinking drive, but you can cover some ground and get into these different ranges and get into these different areas. And all of a sudden, all right, well, what else is available? It's caribou's open here, moose is open here, sheep is open here. It's pretty wild, but man, it's some gas mileage.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to hunt caribou rather than moose because, we could have done caribou on our own, but the hunt that takes place off the Steese Highway had just closed.
And
that
then thing closes pretty quick.
Yeah. In 2020, it was still open after I'd finished the sheep hunt, but that was a little earlier in the season. But so it had just closed. So then, but we didn't know that at the time that we backed out of our sheep hunting area because that wasn't really on our radar with like pre-planning things. But we got back to Fairbanks, kind of regrouped, and then realized, all right, well, the weather north of Fairbanks to go into the Brooks Range for a caribou up there is terrible right now. So we decided, all right, well, caribou's out. To drive to the next caribou area is going to be so long anyway. We might as well just go do the moose program. And it worked out. We helped. There was another guy that got another moose out of that friend group. So we helped him deal with that one. And then at the very end, we were able to help go take all of it out to Delta Meat and Sausage and stuff on our way through. And yeah, it worked out okay. It was a good pivot.
Yeah. So how long is it going to take for Delta to get your meat back? I know some people drop them off at the place Indian Valley or whatever near Anchorage. There's a place up in Fairbanks, but like it can be a couple weeks until they even get to it. And then by the time it's processed, packaged, made into sausage, whatever, what's the timetable of getting that meat back?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's probably done by now. Okay. We were, I want to say we were like number 10 or 11 in line or something. So shouldn't have been too long. And we weren't getting a lot of fancy stuff made. So I'm hoping it's just about done. Tomorrow I'm heading to Juneau for a couple of days and then flying to Anchorage and then Fairbanks and then getting my truck and then driving back down. So on my way back down, hopefully I'll be able to grab the meat in Delta.
Nice.
We'll split it up obviously, but be able to grab some of the stuff and bring it back down here.
Nice. Do you get mostly just packed? Did you grounded sausage or what'd you do with it?
It's kind of going all over the place. I got some roasts, I got some steaks. There's a big like form to fill out with like what you want, and they kind of divvy it up based on, I don't know. They have their routine. I just basically did what my uncle usually liked to get, and then we'll just sort it all out up there.
Nice.
And then, so I was thinking about flying back with it, or then, sending it on Alaska Air Cargo, and basically all those either just became like a hassle or logistically complicated. And now it's getting cooler and cooler. By the time I'm up there with the truck, when I have, frozen packaged meat, throw it in a big cooler, it's going to stay frozen for 2 days till I get back to Juneau. So
yeah,
shouldn't be a problem.
Nice.
Save a little on shipping.
Yeah. So what else are you going to do while you're back up there rescuing the meat? Is it just meat rescues? See some people? Any other tag you got in the pocket? Most of the stuff, or a lot of the stuff, is kind of closed down now. It's kind of tapering.
No, I'm gonna I'll see some family while I'm up there, but I'm gonna do some flying on one of the days in Anchorage. build a couple more hours and do some flying in a different plane type than I've flown before. And then, sorry, what?
What kind of plane do you usually fly?
What I was training on last winter was Piper Cherokee, a couple different versions of that, but basically just a low wing trainer. And then I'll just do a high wing trainer, just Cessna. They're basically, a little bit different flight characteristics, but basically the same thing.
What size Cessna?
Probably 172.
Okay.
Yeah, just still pretty small.
Yeah. Cheap. That's cool. So when you're up in Anchorage, like you just contact someone who has like a instructor who has a plane and ask to get some hours and pay them, or how does that work?
Yeah. I'll go through an instructor. A friend has his pilot's license, and he'll rent a plane for a few hours, and then if his instructor has time, I'll rent another plane for a couple more hours and fly with her for a little bit.
Nice.
And just try to stay, not proficient, but try not to let those skills, languish.
Yeah, those are skills you want to keep pretty fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then I'll be back down in Arizona where I was doing training last winter. I'll be down there for a family reunion at the very end of October. So hopefully do a couple more hours with the instructor and fly around by myself for a few more hours too.
Nice. Where in Arizona?
Southern Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah. So I found a little private airstrip that has a couple planes on it, and it's pretty crazy. You'll be landing, my little junkie trainer that's got thousands of hours on it and just is used and abused, and then right behind you is like a like Learjet landing, and then like someone's like fancy like 3D acrobatic plane takes off after that, and then like a $300,000 Super Cub clone lands right after you, and it's like kind of crazy, kind of cool.
Yeah, though. Some of the summers in Ketchikan here, you got the whole variety. You got the Alaska Airlines, of course. You got Island Air, which is a twin turboprops that go over to Prince of Wales. Then you got like someone has an ultralight parked over there. You got a couple Lear jets, and you got a couple 185s. It's just the full gamut of aircraft over there at the airport.
Oh yeah. It was like Ketchikan. Well, then you got all the float planes. You got the main runway, the float runway. Yeah, and then Juneau's busy too because you've got 1,800 helicopters going all different directions.
Yeah,
and float traffic and jet traffic. And if you're in a little plane and you're coming in and a jet's coming in, they're going to be coming a lot faster than you are. So
those are things that
go ahead. It makes me nervous. Things that make me nervous.
in Anchorage, it seems like everything has a pretty defined float or flight pattern. There's that lake that's fairly close to the airport, but I mean everything is very specific in and out of the airport. It's as soon as you take off, you are hard banking to get out of someone else's way, and then that seaplane area that's pretty close to it. A lot lower, a lot out of the way there, and then you got the air base there. So there's a lot of traffic, but it seems very defined where people are supposed to go.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the most intimidating part of flying up there is how complicated the airspace is. I'm sure that for the size and the population around there, I'm sure it's the most complicated airspace in the United States. It has to be.
Yeah, it's a top 5 cargo destination in North America or the world, right? So there's tons of commercial flights plus cargo, and then you add in all the private stuff going around, plus the Air Force. Like that's a lot.
Yeah. So anyway, it'll be new. It'll be something fun. We'll just probably do that for the afternoon or whatever if it's good weather. If it's not good flying weather, maybe just go fishing or something. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. I only hunted, I think, 2 days in September here, and both was pretty miserable. But one time was just to go set out trail cams. Mm-hmm. But basically, between moose last year, deer last year, moose this year, a couple deer earlier this summer. I'm not in a meat shortage, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really angling to do that much more hunting. Yeah.
Well, that's the nice thing. We're kind of in a similar situation, which is bizarre because we have a caribou and we have 2 mountain goats. So we're pretty decent on meat in addition to the halibut and salmon that we got, but we don't have a deer yet. It's just kind of bizarre. But it is nice that, we can go out for a deer and those are a lot smaller. So it's not like, we're mostly full of meat. And if we shoot a moose, then we're buying 2 new freezers. So we're in pretty good shape that way. And it's nice to have that variety and it's nice to feel good about it. You're not desperate for anything because you're going to run out of meat. So looking forward to the next month and a half, 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been shooting my bow a lot and going to bring that to Juneau with me in Anchorage and do some shooting there too and make sure I'm tuned up, and I'll just bow hunt in November and just, if something happens, great. If it doesn't, if I don't get anything coming in real close, then I won't worry about it.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun.
When do you start? I know a lot of people, they take September off. They do their early mountain blacktail rut for the first, couple weeks or maybe, mid-August. And they kind of take September off. And some people don't even start hunting again until like end of October. Whereas other people say, you start hunting in October because they're going to start to move at some point, and then you got the pre-rut, then you got the rut. So how do things kind of measure up there with how, when can you really start to think about getting some rut action or some deer?
I basically don't worry about hunting from September, 15th to the end of October, because and I'm sure, and there are guys that shoot, deer and bucks, but in that time frame. But I do a lot of hunting in early August through the end of August, and then I just wait because I got other things I got to do. There's other things to do, other things to hunt. That's, a little bit easier giving the conditions and, how spread out deer are during later September and through October. And then once the rut is actually starting to happen, and here, for whatever reason, it doesn't really seem like there's a really strong pre-rut stuff until I want to say just basically the early November, November 12th. I think I know I've shot a couple deer on November 12th in particular, and that is full on rut at that point. So, given this, spot to spot sometimes can be a little different too, just a few miles away. But basically, I don't get really stoked up about anything till November rolls around.
Yeah. October 31st, like Halloween, that weekend tends to be when I really start to get excited. I've had some success there. And I think part of it comes with, if you do kind of take it easy October, then you got all the juice for the end of October and November. If you're going hard all through September and all through October, you kind of get beaten down by the weekend warrior. Every weekend, you're just soaking wet. You're stinking tired. You might not be seeing stuff. And then those weekends just kind of wear on you, that in addition to work. So I know you're supposed to keep hammering and everything like that, but man, you get saturated every weekend for an entire month. By the time rut rolls around, you're like, oh, gosh, man, I'm kind of sick of being tired. It's kind of sick of being wet, kind of sick of being cold.
Yeah. The season is 6 months long. So you don't need to be hammering for 6 months. If you're actually out hunting and are being effective, you're going to shoot your deer relatively quickly, or, more deer than you need. So yeah, I like learning. I like exploring new places. So I rarely go to the same place twice or maybe I'll go to the same place a couple times in a year, but I might not go back there the next year. Just because I kind of figured that little place out. I want to go learn something else. And then that expands your total repertoire of where you can go and what, rather than just going to the same place over and over and over again. And I don't know, to me, that's the more enjoyable, is just having a fairly good working knowledge of lots of areas, I think, is probably better than knowing one place super, super well.
Yeah, I think there's a benefit to knowing one place super well, but like there's a lot of universal sort of tactics once you kind of learn the terrain and kind of get out of just walking down the middle of the muskegs and hoping something is going to be outstanding in the muskeg or bedded down in the muskeg. Just kind of getting that idea of, all right, if we're 15 feet off or 15 yards off the muskeg in this salal or in this really thick stuff, this is where they're going to be bedded. So find that trail and use those tactics that are universal. That, anytime you're approaching a small little muskeg, like those little pocket muskegs tend to be really, really good. So rather than looking for the biggest muskeg you can find, hey, this pocket muskeg is great because this could consolidate some of the action in the area. It's all timber, but then here's where you're going to get those nice edges with some stuff where they can feed or they can be around there. This is going to be a good rut spot. And different angles too, paying attention to the wind and walking all the way around. Rather than just go down the middle, just all those sort of things and applying that to new areas. That way you don't, like you said, keep going back to the same spot, which you might be educating the deer. Maybe someone else is there. It's fun to apply those things and learn.
Yeah. The two places that I went to in last couple of weeks, were both new to me areas. And I found those little sweet spots, the real thick, dense timber that you can sneak through really easily, move through a lot of area without giving yourself away, and then poke out into these kind of small openings. And it was pouring rain and miserable, and I was soaking wet, but I saw quite a few deer in just still hunting, sneaking, not calling, just being very slow and stealthy and just going through those high density areas where that's where the deer's going to be. They're not going to be out in the open when it's windy and rainy and wet. They're going to be right in the thick stuff. But because it's windy and rainy and wet, your sound is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. It was a waste of time to go hunting because I knew the bucks, it was too early. The bucks were still going to be kind of higher, but it was foggy and rainy up high anyway. So there was, but then I just wanted to get out and set trail cams on spots that I had looked at on the map and said, okay, this is probably the right elevation. This is the right aspect. There's good timber. All these things look good. And there's trails around. So I'll go collect those trail cams up probably at the end of November, and see what had happened. I'll probably try to hunt those areas in November, and then get my trail cams at the very end of November and see what was around.
Yeah, I like scouting out some of those areas so you see it when you see it for the first time, because everything around here is just so dense. If you're down south and you think, okay, I can get through this. This is going to be pretty easy to get through. You can really scout it, but a lot of times here we're just looking at muskegs, but we don't know what the approach is going to be. It could be a lot more, it looks kind of gradual. Maybe it's more of a steep climb. Maybe it's a little bit more, brushy than you think, or that it looks online. Then all of a sudden, when you're trying to do it in season, this is your one day dedicated to it, and it's not at all what you thought it would be. So getting eyes on it first and think, okay, I actually need to approach from this angle here because this is going to be a lot quieter. Or you find a game trail, you find something else. Getting that first eye on it and then hunt it the second time. That's an effective method.
Yeah. And that's why that was low probability of bumping into a buck there, but during kind of mid-September, but just like you said, low pressure too. Scout it, figure out what you want. And then when it's prime time and there's bucks that have come down in elevation and now they're actually actively rutting, they might come to a call. That's, how to get into all those areas without, giving yourself away. That could be, super valuable.
Yeah. Well, what else you got, man? It's getting a little bit toward dinner time here. I know I got some Italian sausage caribou, caribou Italian sausage, however you say that. But I'm pretty stoked on that. What else you got?
I got about 8 more Dungeness to crack tonight. We got our boats put away for the season and pulled the crab pot the other day, and it was loaded. So nice. Gave a bunch away, ate a bunch yesterday. I'll eat the rest tonight and then package up some and save it. But I got to get to that. I guess the bad things about, I wrote down a couple bad things that happened on the sheep hunt that people might learn from if I discuss them. So I popped the air mattress, my sleeping pad, and didn't have a patch kit. And so laid down at night after hiking a long ways and being pretty tired, and woke up about an hour later flat on my back, cold. And it was dark and I couldn't figure out where the hole was anyway. And I blew it up and then it deflated, and I blew it up again, deflated. And I just did that all night. Nathan, my hunting partner, did have a patch kit, but he didn't know where it was. And it was the middle of the night, so he didn't try to dig it out. I just kind of suffered that first night. We were able to patch it, but it barely patched it. So I'll have to, I'll try to do a little bit of permanent fix when I get my pad back here. Cause I just left all my gear up there and we just flew home. So I'd say, if you're going to do a multi-day hunt, make sure you've got a patch kit for a sleeping pad or maybe a couple, cause they don't weigh anything. They're tiny and it could save your bacon. Cause we were looking down the barrel of maybe 8 more nights, and 8 more nights sleeping on rocks in a creek bed was not going to be fun. No, it might have been a deal breaker. The other thing, little sewing kit would have been great. I didn't have that. And, in that burn area that we were crossing, a lot of stuff was downed and tilted over at weird angles. And, I ripped a pretty good hole in the Kuyu rain pants right in the crotch. And it wasn't super, super close to the danger zone, but it was a big enough spot where it would have it let water in when it was raining. Had I had a thread and needle, I could at least kind of close that gap back up again. And then there's Aquaseal that dries pretty quick. So, and that's what I usually do to patch. I'll just sew it back up and then Aquaseal the front and back, and that works great.
Having some patches is huge. I've done that with my Sitka pants. This was a couple years ago. They tore a little bit. They got it dried out enough to put a patch on that. Makes a big difference. But yeah, those things, there's nothing weight wise to them. So having a little possibles pack that's got a couple things like that in there, it's huge just to have those things, be able to get back to effective hunting, because those things just wear on your mind a little bit. If you don't sleep real well, it bogs you down a little bit. Yeah.
And I've used that pad for a long time, and I've used other pads. I've never popped a hole, and I've slept in some questionable spots, but, and I don't even know how the hole got popped. I found it, but anyway. Then the other thing was, it was raining and windy and kind of gross. We were up on the, ridge top watching rams, and it was gusty, and my rain fly on my backpack flew off and sailed down the mountain, out of sight, gone. And it's pouring rain. All my stuff is in now something that's not water resistant, even hardly. And it's like that. This might really suck here.
Yeah.
And luckily I went back down, but I had to descend quite a ways, and I got it on the way out that day and found it.
Wow.
But it took, if I would have just stopped what I was doing and go down 1,000 feet, get it, or wherever it ended up, and then climb all the way back up to where we were, that's just another big burner.
Yeah.
So like having a little, so then Nathan bailed me out again. He had a little tiny aluminum carabiner, and I just clipped it through the little bungee straps on the rainfly through behind my back somewhere, and then it wouldn't fly off anymore. But
nice.
Like could have been another terrible, complication.
Yeah. Carabiners are nice to have, just clipped, just for whatever.
Yeah. And we ended up using another one to hang all our food up. Where we where we camped in the timber and stuff. We didn't bring all our food with us the whole time. Mm-hmm. So we left a cache of food and just climbed up as high as I could get into the tree and had a little string over it, or had a paracord over it, and hoisted all our food up there. And hopefully that's, that would have been it, nothing bothered it. So
yeah,
maybe it worked, maybe nothing ever came by, but a couple little things made it a little bit better, and without those couple things, it might have really sucked. But
it's always good to have a good hunting partner, just in case there's stuff that you forget. It's nice to have someone that can bail you out if need be, because that's going to happen at some point. You can be as prepared as you want, but stuff happens.
Yeah. And I had a pretty good med kit. And that's the one thing that I like. I've got a lot of good stuff in there. And I've hunted with other people that either have like basically nothing for a med kit, or like way too much. Like a friend is a volunteer EMT here, and he brings, it's got to be 8 pounds worth of like med kit stuff every time. It's like, well, there's got to be a happy medium here of like, so we don't need to bring all this stuff every time, because the odds of using any of that's super, super low. But, you don't want to just be out there with nothing. Nathan's pretty solid. It's really nice to have a good hunting partner. That for sheep especially, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Oh, the best thing about Nathan is that all his camo is a different color than mine, so there's no confusion, and it's all like almost child size too. So even if it was the same, it'd be we wouldn't be borrowing each other's stuff.
Yeah. What does he run?
Just the exact same stuff, but just in a different pattern.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
He's got the Vias, Kuyu Vias, or what, the stuff that doesn't have any green in it, and then I've got the stuff with the green.
Gotcha. Cool.
But we didn't need camo anyway, because the sheep either never saw us or they saw us walking around and just didn't care. So
nice. Cool, man. Well, always great to talk to you. Really appreciate the adventures, and even though we're both in Southeast, it's it's always wild. It's always different. You're way up there in Hoonah.
Yep, the northern Southeast correspondent here.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks again. Great stories, and we'll hopefully rut turns out pretty good. I'm sure we'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks.
All right, cool. Yep.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, later.